Yo, what's up, guys? This is Why Not Be Reckless, aka Why Not Be Casting. I'm one of the HCS commentators, and we have another HCS Weekly Report where today we're going to break down every last bit of Charlotte, starting with pool play. We'll probably do a secondary video talking about the open bracket as well, but either way, we're going to break down every last bit of it, and I'm back from being Wall Street's water boy over at Charlotte. It was amazing to be able to work with the legend and to be able to work with HCS for another season. So, but yeah, let's hop right into it in case you guys missed any of the action. So, right off the rip, you know what? Let's cover the open bracket a little bit. Let's switch. Let's change the format up a little bit. We're gonna cover the open bracket, and we're gonna talk about. We'll stop right here with complexity. Re-wanting native red. This was huge for complexity getting a win like that. Native red, obviously one of the favorites to make it out of the open bracket, but let's not forget that they did have a sub. Druck wasn't able to make it to the event, and they had one of the triplets in Diagram, suppressed and Avenue's brother, filling in as that fourth player. And complexity, red hot, arguably one of the teams that probably shouldn't have been in the open bracket to begin with, able to come up with a 3-1 win. On the other side, 6 Karma, which I believe is Lord Strikey's team, able to 3-0 Red Wolves. That was big for them. Eventually, complexity 3-0ing them in that situation. And we'll talk about native white 3-0ing leftovers. That was another favorite to make it out of open bracket. By the way, King J, Piggy, and the boys. Cloud9 3-0ing, I believe it's going rogue, which was Envoy and Tony 2-turn, or I believe it was playing with a broken arm, by the way, absolutely insane. And then eventually Native White 3-2ing Cloud9, who was one of my favorites to make it out of the open bracket as well. That was a tough matchup for them. And so you see Native White and Complexity making it through here. And we'll see if there's a lower bracket. Does it show the lower bracket? It does show the lower. Look at that. Sorry, my first time navigating this. I apologize, guys. So throughout the lower bracket, you had multiple teams that had to try to make it out here. So we see one Avenue, Native Red beating the Durfs. I'm not sure who our Baba Bobs was, to be honest with you, but Native Red either way going to 3-0 them. And then eventually in the final matchup to make it into pool play, this so you know who was the two that made it towards the upper bracket, but the final matchup to make it into pool play, Cloud9 were able to 3-2 Native Red in a game 5 to beat them out for that spot. Really unfortunate for Native Red, but I'm sure once they get their full starting lineup working, they'll be back in pool play where they belong. On the other side of things, you had Proton Gaming. I would say Native White and Proton Gaming were two teams that, and obviously Native White, Proton Gaming were two teams that you had to keep your eyes out for throughout the whole open bracket and beyond. Proton Gaming 3-0ing Leftovers. Leftovers played well. Even in the online qualifiers, sadly, weren't able to make it into pool play. And then Proton Gaming even able to 3-0-6 Karma for that final spot in pool play. I want to get that out of the way so now we can dive into pool play and know who our 4 teams coming in, because they are going to matter going into pool play. So right off the rip, FaZe with the 3-0, no surprise there. 3-1 on Shopify Rebellion, 3-1 on Navi, and then a 3-0 on Proton Gaming. I will say I would have loved to see Shopify Rebellion pull off 2 wins and take it to a game 5. I think Navi have it in them, but no surprise it was a 3-1 really. What I was surprised at was Proton Gaming pulling off the 3-1 win versus Shopify Rebellion. This was a huge win. This was a huge win for Proton Gaming. Mind you, in case you guys don't remember, that's Haynes and Common's new team, the original duo coming over from Oxygen Esports. Both of them eventually dropped. Breaking Shot joins them. And I believe their 4th was Posey, I want to say. That was a huge win for them. Eventually, they get 0-3 by FaZe, and then 3-1 by Navi. And that creates this really weird tiebreaker situation where I believe it went to map count. So because Proton, because actually, I'm trying to think, how did that even come to? Let's actually count the maps here. So we got 3 wins. 4, So 4 wins total for Proton. Navi had 1, 0. So Navi had 4 as well, and then Shopify Rebellion had 1, 4, and then 5. So I guess no wait. Proton said, so Proton and Shopify had 1 more win over Navi. So I guess that's how it came out to be, where Navi ends up in last place. It was a 3-way tie, and because Proton and Proton and Shopify Rebellion both had 5 wins in their map count, that ended up giving them the tiebreak. Okay, that makes a little more sense why Navi ended up 4th place, because I wanted to break that down. It's a three-way time. Like, okay, so how was this determined? And it was determined by map count. Very, very weird situation, but it's tough because I would have loved to see Navi move forward. Proton Gaming obviously killing it coming out of the open bracket. That's a huge storyline. And of course, Shopify Rebellion maybe didn't perform as well as we would want them to. But I'm excited to see what they do on the next land, and want to continue to see them get better and better. Carmea is the real deal, and we should be watching out for them. Either way, that was Pool A. Pool B, I would say Quadrant taking Sentinels to a Game 5 and Optic to a Game 5 was huge. In case you guys don't know, Quadrant came in with the sub. It was 2 Foxy coming in instead of Chick. And Chick was their secondary slayer, their dirty work player. Chick did so much for this roster. It was really unfortunate to see them not be able to come in as their full starting lineup, especially with how amazing Quadrant have been and what the high expectations were for them going into this event. I will say, despite having a sub, you still take 2 of the top teams to a Game 5. So 1 game away from beating out Optic and Pools. By the way, spoiler alert, Optic won the freaking tournament. And Quadrant were 1 game away from beating them out in Pools and giving them a lower seed with a sub on their team. So you can only imagine it would have been even better if they had their starter. And then how would that have shaken up the bracket if Optic didn't come in as the number 1 seed in their pool? Would that have made it tougher? Optic 3-1 over Sentinels, no surprise. Sentinels 3-1 Cloud9. Can't say I'm surprised. Optic 3-0 Cloud9, and Cloud9 get 3-1 by Quadrant. Cloud9 had a hell of a run through the open bracket, and really proud of the boys. Sadly, they came into pool play, and they weren't able to get a win. It's tough. Optic, Sentinels, and Quadrant. Optic, Sentinels, and Quadrant. All 3 of them in your pool. That's just tough. I was high on G1 going into this event. I was high on Native White in the preseason, but due to their scrims and their qualifier results, I hopped off the bandwagon. I'm not gonna lie to you, I hopped off the bandwagon. I should have stayed on. Native White with the 3-0 versus Believe the Hype. I believed in the hype. Sadly, Native White did not. Believe the Hype with the read by G1. It's tough. Tough to go back-to-back with no wins. That's really tough. Native White 3-0 Luminosity. I'm not surprised. Native White were killing it. Native White able to take G1 to a Game 5, but not able to come out with the win in pool play. We'll talk about that a little bit later. G1 3 over Luminosity. Believe the Hype going the distance with Luminosity, able to win in a 3-2 fashion. I'll give Believe the Hype a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. As a brand new team, we're only able to scrim 2 times going into the qualifiers, and maybe not many times after that going into this event, and it's tough. Playing on land is a different beast, and I've been there, done that. I've put myself out there where I would say I'm a much better player online than I am on land. Land is different, dude. Land is freaking different. G1 Native White moving through the winners bracket. Believe the Hype move forward through the elimination bracket. We'll see how they do going forward from there. Finally, the last and final pool. Space Station Gaming pulling off the 3-0, 3-0 versus TSS. Complexity 3-0 versus Divine Mind. Not surprised. SSG 3-1 over Complexity. Good for them to get a win over SSG. We know how dominant they can be on land. Complexity 3-0 TSS. Complexity 3-0 TSS. Now, I know a lot of other people probably wouldn't have seen this as a surprise, but I did. I'll be honest with well, first of all, TSS were already beating Complexity out by maybe like 1 or 2 games in scrims right off the rip. So right off the rip, you have that. And I was really high on this TSS roster. You got Swish, Mortally, Super CC, and then Septify as well. So the very same Septify that Complexity dropped and TSS stole up right off the rip. I was high on this TSS roster, and I thought Septify was going to get his revenge. Complexity came out swinging, man. Complexity looked good all event, and TSS didn't hit the ceiling that I expected them to hit. They didn't. At least in pool play. We'll see what happens in bracket play. TSS 3 over Divine Mind. Space Station 3 over Divine Mind. Love Divine Mind. Respect what they did, but they lost. The ANZ region lost out on Barcode, and it's gonna be tough replacing him. He's damn good. And you see how good Native White we're looking. Let's go into championship bracket. Phase 3 over Sentinels, no surprise. Love Sentinels, no surprise here. Phase with the 3-0. Space Station Gaming 3 over Native White. Native White went on a legendary run through the open bracket, and I love this team. Like I said, I was high on them in the preseason. I fell off a little bit, but Native White, I said Native White, you give them time to practice and really become a team because it's an interesting team that came together. I feel like they're going to be dangerous, and I still believe that. You'll see about that run in the lower bracket, what they were able to put together. G1 with the 3-2 win over Complexity. Good for them. Good for Complexity going the distance with G1. Because as I said before, I thought G1 were a top 4 team going into this event, and I didn't have Complexity that high. I like the Complexity. I like the Complexity team. And I like the fact that they're going with a team rather than like just names. They're going with a team that actually fit well together. So I love the blueprint that they're trying to put together. So the fact they were able to take G1 to Game 5 and almost beat them out, that's really big for them. Optic with the 3-1 over Shopify Rebellion, no surprise there. Phase 3-1 over Space Station Gaming. I love SSG. I had SSG as a top 3 team, and I had FaZe #1 team going in. So this to me is not an upset. I know some people might think it is, but to me it's not an upset. Optic 3 over G1. I don't think anybody had that as an upset at all. Optic 3-2 over FaZe. This is we'll talk about the grand finals later on, but dude, what the hell? like honestly, I mean, FaZe were up 2-0. Renegade is shooting bodies game 1 and game 2. Even in that game 3, Empyrean captured the flag. My man is shooting bodies. And it looked like FaZe were about to sweep them. And Levi Dickinson would be proud. The inventor of the broom. Back in, I think it was like 1879 or something. It was like way before any of us were born. Levi Dickinson invented the broom, and instead of FaZe using it to sweep Optic Gaming pulled that Uno reversal card, and reverse swept them with Levi Dickinson's greatest invention. I mean, all they did was make the green wall turn into the green monster because Optic started playing angry. And when Optic started playing angry, they looked dominant. And after winning out of this winners bracket finals and going into the grand finals, no matter who was in their way, Optic Gaming were destined to beat them. Because that winners bracket finals alone gave them that confidence. If they were wavering for any reason, it put the dog back in them. Dude, Optic after this reverse sweep, Optic started moving and acting like the champions that they are. This winners bracket finals was the moment that Optic needed to take back their championship. We'll talk about the grand finals later on. Sentinels 3-0 versus Bleed the Hype. Love Believe the Hype. Sadly, Sentinels didn't believe in it either. Native Quat with the 3 over Proton Gaming. Proton Gaming, want to give a huge shout out to them. I thought they had a legendary run through the open bracket. Going against the odds, proving everybody wrong. Another team that's just, forget names. It's about performance that wins. And even though they got 3-0 by Native White, I thought to even get here to begin with was incredible. So definitely want to give some love to Proton Gaming. Complexity with the 3-0 versus Quadrant. Good for Complexity. I think Quadrant played amazing all event long, despite the fact having a sub. But my question is if they had their starting chick, would this have been a 3-0? Would have Complexity still won? What would happen if Quadrant came into this event fully loaded? I definitely give Quadrant a shout out for making it, for even making it into championship bracket. You know, you have a team like Native Red who wasn't even able to make it out of the open bracket when having a sub, and one could say the same thing could happen to Quadrant, but Quadrant obviously starting in pool, so having a little bit of an advantage there, but still showing off and showing out, taking Optic to a game 5, taking Sentinels to a game 5. Quadrant played well. It just so happened that on Saturday just weren't able to figure it out. Shopify Rebellion 3-0 versus TSS. The TSS that I know could have pushed us to a game 5 and even possibly beat out Rebellion. Obviously, Rebellion is still coming in as the higher seed and still the favorites going in. However, I would say that I think TSS have it in them to even beat them out or at least make it a series, and they just they disappointed. I hate to say it, and by the way, this is not being me being mean to TSS. I know the players very well. I've the same path that I've grew up in this casting world. I feel like I've kind of run parallel with those players, like the Super CCs and the Mortalies and the Swishes. Like I feel like we kind of came up together. So when I'm hard on teams, it's not me just being a jerk. It's me saying I just expected more. You know, I want more from these teams because I do believe in them. So when you see me, be a little bit harder on like a TSS, it's not me just being a jerk. It's because I love those boys and I want to see them do great things. Native What with the 3-2 win over Sentinels. Let me say that again. Native What with the 3-2 win over Sentinels. I'll call that an upset. And again, I said Native White are gonna be a team destined to compete for top 8, top 6, and even top 4 in the future. Little did I know it was gonna happen a lot sooner than expected. I interviewed McWin before the start of the season, and I asked him straight up. I said, what kind of? I said, where are you at in your professional career? I challenged him. I said, where are you at? What kind of team are you gonna put together? And he looked me dead in my retinal from the webcam and said that I believe I could put a top 4 team together. And I followed up with that. I said a top 4 team together. I said the top 4 is kind of locked in. This is before FaZe came along. I told him the top 4 is kind of locked in right now. It's gonna be tough to break through. And he said he truly believes that he could put a top 4 team together. I'm not even joking. He literally said that. He used the words top 4. Go back during the interview. I swear it. We'll see if he gets there. Shopify Rebellion with the 3-1 over Complexity. Not surprised. Native White with the 3-1 win over G1. That's another upset in my book. I had G1 as a top 4 team going into this event. I have G1 eventually taking the throne as the third place best team in the league over SSG in the future. I am a high on G1. Native White 3-1 dominant win over G1, which by the way I believe. Am I going crazy? Hold on. Am I going? There's no way. Am I going? I must be going crazy on this. There's no way that there is. Oh, yo, what the? And by the way, in pool play, G1 beat Native White 3-2. By the way, in pool play was G1. It was Native White that pushed G1 the distance, but it was G1 that came out on top. So we go back to the championship bracket. We go back to that lower bracket. That makes this win even better. Even more, the very team that beat you and gave you a lower seed and forced you to start with the round one against SSG, you come out in 3-1 and a dominant win over them. Big for Native White. That's big. SSG with the 3-1 over Shopify Rebellion. Good for them to making this far. Shopify Rebellion are one of the teams that have the widest range. You know, they have. I could see them making top 4. I could see them going top 12. They have a wide range. Good for Shopify Rebellion to make it this far. Sadly, it's just a bad matchup for them. SSG coming with the win, and eventually, in the elimination bracket semifinals, Native White make it through. They got stomped a bit by SSG. I'm not gonna lie. I got to cast this match, so I got to see it firsthand. But good for them to make it. He said he could put a top 14 together, and he wasn't lying. Phase 3 over Space Station Gaming to make it to the grand finals. And in that grand finals, we did see a game 7, by the way, best of 7 in the grand finals, only best of 7 so far in the tournament. And we did see FaZe push Optic. And we saw one of the greatest grand finals that we ever saw. I need to go back and rewatch every single moment of it. There was plays, there was highlights. It was incredible. I got to go back and watch this grand finals. But eventually, Optic, you're world champion. You're back-to-back now, back-to-back-to-back LAN champions. Not too long ago, we were saying that Optic Gaming were an online team. And they go at against what people were already giving them the God Squad. Well, they're giving the title God Squad. People said FaZe would have dropped a single tournament this whole season. Well, here's one. Optic Gaming able to pull off the 3-peat. And man, this season is going to be crazy. Ooh, this season is going to be crazy. That's your HCS Weekly Report, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure you interact with this YouTube video down below. Any kind of interaction is really good for the algorithm, and it pushes it. Any kind of algorithm boosting is good for me. So leave comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And make sure you guys check this out. We record these videos live on Twitch in the morning times, and then we upload it usually the next day. Onto YouTube. So if you want to see it a little bit ahead of everybody else, watch it live on Twitch, and of course TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much.